The Analects, Why Character Trumps Success, the Enduring Mindset of the Junzi. Hook and intro. In a world relentlessly driven by the pursuit of success, we are constantly told to chase promotions, accumulate wealth, and build formidable resumes. From the moment we step into adulthood, the narrative is clear: achieve, acquire, ascend. We measure our worth by external markers: the size of our bank accounts, the prestige of our titles, the number of followers we have. But what if this relentless pursuit, this endless climb, is actually distracting us from something far more profound, something that truly defines a well-lived life? What if true success lies not in what we gain, but in who we become? Today, we dive into an ancient text that offers a radical counter-narrative to this modern obsession: Confucius's The Analects. Compiled over 2 millennia ago, this collection of wisdom introduces us to an ideal, a philosophy, and a way of being known as the Junzi. The Junzi, often translated as the exemplary person or noble person, stands as a beacon for those who seek to prioritize inner cultivation and moral character over the fleeting allure of external achievements. This isn't about rejecting ambition entirely, but about recalibrating our understanding of what truly makes a life successful and meaningful. Our journey into the Analects will reveal how Confucius challenged his own turbulent era by advocating for a life centered on virtues such as benevolence, righteousness, and trustworthiness. He proposed that true leadership, true prosperity, and true contentment stem from a deeply cultivated self, not from power grabbed or riches hoarded. This philosophy invites us to look inward, to reflect on our actions, and to build a character so strong and so virtuous that it becomes its own reward. It suggests that when we focus on becoming better human beings, external accomplishments often follow naturally, but they are no longer the ultimate measure of our worth. In this video, we will explore the profound difference between chasing success and cultivating character, as articulated by Confucius. We will unpack the core tenets of the Junzi mindset, understand the virtues that define it, and discover how these ancient ideas can provide practical guidance for our lives today. In an age of anxiety, comparison, and superficiality, the wisdom of the Analects offers a path to genuine fulfillment, resilience, and a deeper sense of purpose. It reminds us that while the world may push us to achieve more, Confucius beckons us to become more. So let's embark on this intellectual adventure and rediscover what it truly means to live a life of character. This exploration will challenge our preconceived notions of what it means to be successful, urging us to consider the enduring power of ethical living and the profound satisfaction that comes from mastering oneself. By understanding the Junzi mindset, we can begin to shift our focus from merely acquiring to genuinely becoming, fostering not just personal well-being, but also contributing to a more harmonious and just society. Prepare to reconsider your definition of success and perhaps embark on a new kind of pursuit. Context and background. To truly appreciate the wisdom of Confucius and the concept of the Junzi, we must first transport ourselves back to the turbulent era in which he lived. Confucius, or Confuzi, lived from 551 to 479 BCE, a period often referred to as the Spring and Autumn period, which transitioned into the Warring States period of ancient China. This was not a time of peace and prosperity, but one marked by profound political fragmentation, incessant warfare, and widespread social upheaval. The once mighty Zhou dynasty, which had reigned for centuries and provided a stable social and moral order, was in decline. Its authority had eroded, giving way to numerous smaller states that constantly vied for power, leading to relentless conflict and instability. Traditional institutions were crumbling, old moral codes were being disregarded, and common people suffered immensely. It was a chaotic landscape where might often made right and personal gain frequently trumped ethical considerations. In this environment of moral decay and social disarray, Confucius emerged as a philosopher, a teacher, and an aspiring statesman. He was deeply concerned by the suffering he witnessed and believed that the key to restoring order and harmony lay not in military might or strict laws, but in the moral cultivation of individuals, especially those in positions of power. He looked back to the perceived golden age of the early Zhou dynasty, seeking to revive its values of ethical governance, personal integrity, and ritual propriety. The Analects, Chinese letter. The text we are exploring today is a testament to Confucius's lifelong mission. It is not a systematic philosophical treatise with structured arguments, but rather a collection of his sayings, conversations, and anecdotes, meticulously compiled by his disciples after his death. This format gives the text a very personal, immediate feel, almost as if we are listening in on a master teaching his students, grappling with profound questions of ethics and human nature in real time. Within these pages, Confucius introduces the concept of the Junzi Chinese letter, which is central to his philosophy. Historically, Junzi could refer to a son of a ruler or a person of high social status by birth. However, Confucius radically reoriented this term, shifting its meaning from inherited nobility to moral nobility. For Confucius, a Junzi was no longer defined by their lineage or wealth, but by their cultivated character, their ethical conduct, and their unwavering commitment to moral principles. The Junzi thus became the aspirational ideal for all individuals, regardless of their social standing. It represented the exemplary person who, through diligent self-cultivation, embodies the virtues essential for a flourishing life and a harmonious society. This was a profound democratic shift in thinking, suggesting that greatness was accessible to anyone willing to put in the moral effort, rather than being limited to an aristocratic elite. Confucius believed that if individuals, particularly those in leadership, could embody the qualities of the Junzi, then society itself would naturally find its balance and order. This was his answer to the pervasive chaos of his time. Start with the self, cultivate virtue, and let that virtue spread outwards, transforming families, communities, and eventually the state. It was a philosophy of moral suasion over coercive force, of inner transformation over external control. This background is crucial because it highlights the practicality and urgency of Confucius's teachings. He wasn't just theorizing in an ivory tower, he was offering a tangible path to peace and prosperity in a world that desperately needed it. His emphasis on character was not an abstract ideal but a blueprint for survival and flourishing amidst moral and political collapse. This is why his teachings resonated so deeply and continue to do so today as we face our own complexities. The fundamental virtues that define the Junzi Ren benevolence, Yi righteousness, Lai propriety, Zhai wisdom, and Xin trustworthiness were not mere philosophical concepts. They were practical guidelines for navigating everyday life, for interacting with family and strangers, for governing, and for teaching. These virtues, cultivated inwardly and expressed outwardly, formed the bedrock of the Junzi mindset, setting it apart from the superficial pursuits of the petty person, who Confucius often contrasted with his ideal. Understanding this historical and philosophical foundation is the first step in unlocking the profound wisdom that the Analects offers. It allows us to see that Confucius's call to pursue character over success was not just an ethical preference, but a deeply considered solution to the most pressing problems of his age. A solution that remains remarkably relevant to the challenges we face in our own modern world. Core narrative and analysis. The central narrative of the Analects revolves around the stark contrast between two archetypal figures. The Junzi, Chinese letter, the exemplary or noble person, and the Chinese letter, the petty or base person. This dichotomy is not just a descriptive classification but a fundamental ethical framework that defines the Confucian vision of a good life. The Junzi embodies the pursuit of character, while the epitomizes the chase for success. Confucius famously articulated this distinction. The Junzi understands what is right, the understands what is profitable. This single statement cuts to the heart of the matter. The Junzi's motivations are rooted in Chinese letter or righteousness, doing what is morally appropriate and just. They act according to principles, integrity, and a deep sense of moral duty. Their decisions are not dictated by what will bring them the most money, power, or fame, but by what is intrinsically good and fitting. For example, if faced with a business opportunity that promises immense wealth but requires compromising ethical standards, the Junzi would unhesitatingly choose righteousness over profit. In contrast, the Zaya is driven by Lai Chinese letter or personal gain and profit. Their primary concern is self-interest, external validation, and the accumulation of material possessions. They are pragmatic to a fault, often willing to bend or break moral rules if it serves their immediate advantage. Confucius would see a Zaya as someone who prioritizes a high-paying job that violates their conscience or who seeks public recognition through superficial means over cultivating genuine character. This difference in motivation leads to entirely different life paths and outcomes. At the heart of the Junzi's mindset is the cultivation of several interconnected virtues, with Ren Chinese letter being the most paramount. Ren is often translated as benevolence, humaneness, or human-heartedness. It represents the ultimate expression of human goodness and encompasses empathy, compassion, and a deep sense of connection to others. It is the ability to love others and to treat them as you would wish to be treated, a concept known as Xiu Chinese letter, or reciprocity. Imagine a scenario: a neighbor falls on hard times. A Zaya might ignore them or even see an opportunity for personal gain. A Junzi, however, guided by Ren, would feel genuine compassion. They would consider how they would wish to be treated in that situation and act with kindness and support, not for praise, but because it is the humane thing to do. This principle extends to all relationships within families, among friends, and in the broader community. The Junzi understands that true fulfillment comes from fostering these deep, empathetic connections. Following Ren is Yi Chinese letter, righteousness or justice. If Ren is the inner feeling of humaneness, Yi is its outward manifestation in action. It is about doing what is morally appropriate and fitting in any given situation. For instance, a Junzi in a position of power would not use their authority to enrich themselves or their cronies. Instead, they would act with Yi, ensuring fairness and justice for all, even if it meant making unpopular decisions or sacrificing personal benefits. Their actions would be guided by principles, not personal agendas. Another crucial virtue is Lai Chinese letter, ritual propriety or etiquette. This is more than just good manners, it is the structured expression of inner virtue. Lai provides a framework for social interactions, guiding how we behave, speak, and show respect. When performed with sincerity, Lai cultivates inner refinement and fosters harmonious relationships. For example, respectful greetings, thoughtful gestures, and adherence to social norms are not superficial displays for the Junzi. They are deliberate acts that demonstrate respect for others and uphold the social fabric. Without Lai, our interactions can become crude and disorganized, even if we have good intentions. Confucius believed that through the consistent practice of Lai, individuals could gradually internalize ethical principles, transforming external forms into genuine inner virtue. It's like learning to play a musical instrument. Initially, the movements are awkward and conscious, but with practice, they become fluid and expressive, a natural extension of the musician's inner feeling. Then there is Zhai Chinese letter or wisdom. This is not just intellectual knowledge, but the ability to discern right from wrong, to understand the way Dao Chinese letter, and to apply moral principles effectively. The Junzi is a lifelong learner, constantly seeking knowledge and reflecting deeply upon it. Confucius emphasized this balance. To learn and not to think is a waste. To think and not to learn is a danger. Wisdom for the Junzi is the enlightened application of virtue, allowing them to navigate complex situations with clarity and moral conviction. Finally, Xin Chinese letter is trustworthiness or sincerity. It means being honest, reliable, and true to one's word. For the Junzi, integrity is paramount. Their actions align with their words, building a foundation of trust in all their relationships. A leader lacking Xin will quickly lose the respect and loyalty of their people. A friend without Zen will damage their bonds. The Junzi understands that a society, a family, or a friendship cannot truly flourish without this fundamental virtue. The journey to becoming a Junzi is described as a continuous process of self-cultivation, Xiu Jai Chinese letter. It is not a destination but a lifelong path of learning, self-examination, and ethical practice. Confucius himself admitted, "I am not the kind of person who is born with knowledge. I am simply fond of antiquity and earnest in seeking it there." This humility is a hallmark of the Junzi. They continually examine themselves for faults, always seeking to improve. For instance, Confucius advocated for daily self-reflection. "I daily examine myself on 3 counts. Whether in acting for others I have not been faithful, whether in working with friends I have not been sincere, and whether I have not mastered and practiced what I have been taught." This rigorous self-assessment ensures that the Junzi remains aware of their shortcomings and actively works to rectify them, demonstrating resilience and a commitment to growth even in the face of setbacks. This idea of continuous self-improvement and shaping one's character resonates strongly with Aristotelian virtue ethics in Western philosophy. Both traditions emphasize that virtue is not innate but is cultivated through habit and practice, leading to eudaimonia, or a flourishing life. However, Confucianism places a greater emphasis on relational ethics and the individual's role in fostering social harmony, seeing personal cultivation as intrinsically linked to societal well-being. Furthermore, the Junzi's internal focus on what is within one's control, thoughts, intentions, and character draws parallels with Stoicism. While Stoics often advocate for individual detachment, the Junzi is deeply engaged with society, yet remains unmoved by external praise or criticism. They are like the North Star Confucius spoke of in governance. To govern with virtue is like the North Star, it stays in its place and all the stars turn towards it. Their moral steadfastness naturally influences others not through force but through exemplary conduct. This philosophy also stands in stark contrast to other schools of thought prevalent in ancient China. Legalism, for example, believed human nature was inherently selfish and required strict laws and harsh punishments to maintain order, a diametrically opposed view to Confucius's emphasis on moral suasion and cultivation. Taoism, as seen in Laozi's Tao Te Ching, often advocated for wu-wei non-action and living in harmony with the natural flow of the universe, reducing desires and embracing simplicity. While different in approach, Confucianism being more socially active and structured, Taoism more passive and spontaneous, both offer a path to inner peace and authenticity that transcends superficial worldly pursuits, albeit through different means. The core narrative of the Analects is not a story of conquest or grand achievements, but a profound exploration of what it means to be truly human, truly noble. It is an invitation to engage in the lifelong art of living, shaping one's character with diligence and integrity, knowing that this internal cultivation is the true measure of a person's worth, far more enduring than any fleeting external success. Deep insight and reflection, the ancient wisdom of the Analects and the enduring ideal of the Junzi offer profound insights that resonate deeply with the complexities of contemporary life. In our modern society, where the cult of success often equates worth with wealth, power, and public recognition, Confucius's philosophy provides a much-needed counter-narrative, inviting us to redefine what a truly successful life entails. One of the most powerful modern applications of the Junzi mindset is in ethical leadership. In today's business and political landscapes, we often see leaders driven purely by profit margins, election cycles, or personal gain, sometimes at the expense of ethics, employee well-being, or the public good. The Junzi ideal offers a timeless blueprint for leaders to prioritize integrity, righteousness, and the welfare of others. For example, a CEO guided by Junzi principles would ensure fair wages and ethical supply chains, even if it slightly reduces short-term profits, because they understand that long-term trust and societal contribution are more valuable. Similarly, in politics, a Junzi leader would govern with benevolence and justice, acting not for personal power but for the harmony and prosperity of all citizens. Their leadership would inspire rather than coerce, creating a society where people willingly follow because they respect the leader's character. This stands in stark contrast to a Machiavellian approach which prioritizes power and control above all else. For personal well-being, the Junzi mindset offers a pathway to deeper satisfaction and resilience. In an era often marked by comparison culture, a social media anxiety, and the pressure to constantly keep up, the Confucian emphasis on inner cultivation liberates us from the relentless chase. Instead of finding validation in external accolades, the Junzi finds contentment in their own moral integrity and personal growth. This means cultivating an inner resilience that is not easily swayed by external setbacks or criticisms. For example, when faced with career disappointment, a person adopting the Junzi mindset might reflect on what they learned, how they can improve their character and continue to act with righteousness rather than succumbing to despair or bitterness. Their worth is not tied to the outcome but to the effort and the character they displayed. This internal locus of value is a powerful antidote to the stress and burnout prevalent in modern society. In interpersonal relationships, the virtues of Ren benevolence, Xin trustworthiness, and Lai propriety are foundational. In a world where relationships can often be superficial or transactional, the Junzi teaches us to foster deep, authentic connections based on empathy, sincerity, and mutual respect. This means actively listening, being reliable, and treating others with the dignity they deserve. For instance, in a marriage or friendship, a Junzi would prioritize open communication, forgiveness, and consistent support, building bonds that endure beyond fleeting convenience. Finally, the Junzi mindset profoundly impacts our approach to education. Confucius viewed learning not as mere knowledge acquisition for career advancement, but as a lifelong process of moral cultivation. In modern education systems, often criticized for focusing too much on testing and rote memorization, the Confucian approach advocates for holistic development, integrating intellectual understanding with ethical practice and emotional maturity. It encourages students to ask why, to reflect on the moral implications of their knowledge, and to use their learning to become better citizens and human beings. However, the application of ancient wisdom to modern contexts is not without its nuances and points of contention. One might ask if the Junzi ideal is too idealistic for a competitive world, or if its emphasis on hierarchy in traditional society can be reconciled with modern notions of equality. While the Analects reflects its historical context, its core message of universal human potential for moral cultivation transcends these specifics. The true challenge lies in discerning the timeless principles from their historical manifestations and adapting them to our diverse societies. Let us now reflect on some key philosophical questions raised by the Junzi mindset. What truly constitutes a successful life for you? Is it measured by what you accumulate or by the person you become? How do you currently prioritize character cultivation in your daily life? What specific actions do you take to foster virtues like benevolence or trustworthiness? In what ways might a focus on internal character make you more resilient in the face of external challenges or failures? Can you recall a time when your character truly guided you? How can you apply the principles of Ren and Yi in your professional life, even when it might mean making difficult decisions that don't immediately maximize profit or personal gain? What role does humility play in your learning and growth? Are you truly open to learning from everyone, even those you might perceive as having shortcomings? How does your definition of success align with or diverge from the Junzi's emphasis on inner worth over external appearance? What would it mean to truly embrace this shift? In what ways can a deeper focus on character contribute to the harmony of your family, your community, or your workplace? Think about specific virtues you could emphasize. These questions invite us to engage with Confucius not just as an ancient philosopher, but as a living guide for navigating the complexities of our modern existence, encouraging us to seek an enduring form of success rooted in the unwavering strength of our character. outro as we conclude our journey through the Analects and the profound concept of the Junzi. One truth stands clear. Confucius offered us a revolutionary blueprint for living, one that daringly places the cultivation of character above the relentless pursuit of success as commonly defined. He invites us to pivot from asking, "What can I get?" to "Who can I become?" redefining a life well lived not by external accolades, but by an unwavering commitment to inner virtue. The Junzi mindset isn't just an ancient ideal. It's a timeless call to authenticity, integrity, and a deeper sense of purpose that resonates perhaps more strongly today than ever before. The core message is beautifully simple yet profoundly challenging. True and lasting fulfillment comes from embodying virtues like benevolence, righteousness, trustworthiness, and wisdom. This internal mastery, achieved through continuous learning and rigorous self-reflection, creates a powerful moral compass that guides us through life's complexities, fosters harmonious relationships, and contributes to a just society. It frees us from the often stressful and superficial race for external validation, offering instead the quiet, enduring satisfaction of a life grounded in moral excellence. If this exploration has sparked your curiosity about ancient wisdom and its relevance to modern life, there are many avenues for further inquiry. You might delve deeper into the works of Laozi and Taoism, whose emphasis on naturalness, simplicity, and wu-wei non-action offers a complementary though distinct path to inner peace and harmony. While Confucius guides us to actively shape our character, Laozi invites us to align with the natural flow of the universe, offering a balance to the active pursuit of virtue. Another fascinating figure is Mencius, a key successor to Confucius, who further elaborated on the concept of human nature, famously arguing for its inherent goodness. Exploring Mencius would provide a deeper understanding of the potential we all hold to become a Junzi and the societal role of nurturing this innate virtue. His philosophy emphasizes that the seeds of benevolence and righteousness are within us all, waiting to be cultivated. You could also explore Western virtue ethics, particularly the works of Aristotle, who also championed character development as the path to eudaimonia, or human flourishing. Comparing the Confucian Junzi with Aristotle's magnanimous man or his concept of practical wisdom offers rich insights into universal ethical aspirations across different cultures. Ultimately, the enduring legacy of the Analects is an invitation to embark on the most important journey of all, the journey inward. It asks us to cultivate our character with the same fervor we once reserved for chasing external rewards, promising that in doing so, we discover a truer, more resilient, and infinitely more meaningful form of success. May your path be guided by the wisdom of the Junzi, enriching not only your own life but the world around you. Thank you for joining us on this exploration. The Analects, Ancient Wisdom for Mastering Social Intelligence. Hook and intro. Have you ever wondered why some people seem to navigate social situations with effortless grace while others constantly stumble? Why some leaders inspire profound loyalty and respect while others, despite their power, command only grudging obedience? Why does it feel like some individuals inherently understand how to connect, to empathize, and to foster harmony, while for many of us, social interaction remains a source of anxiety or frustration? These aren't just modern questions, they are timeless human dilemmas that thinkers across civilizations have grappled with for millennia. Today, we journey back more than 2,500 years to ancient China to explore a profound collection of wisdom that offers not just answers, but an entire framework for mastering the art of social intelligence. We are talking about the Analects, the collected sayings and teachings of Confucius. Far from being a dry academic text, the Analects is a vibrant dialogue, a practical guide to living a good life, fostering strong relationships, and building a harmonious society. But what does a text from ancient China have to teach us about something as seemingly contemporary as social intelligence? It teaches us that social intelligence isn't just about external charm or clever manipulation. It is, at its deepest level, about cultivating an inner world of profound consciousness that then naturally manifests as empathy, wisdom, and appropriate action in every social encounter. In a world increasingly dominated by digital connections and often superficial interactions, the insights from Confucius feel more vital than ever. We're often told to improve our people's skills, to network effectively, or to project confidence. But Confucius suggests something far more fundamental, that the true source of our ability to connect, to influence positively, and to build lasting trust lies within our own self-cultivation. It's about developing an ethical consciousness, a bright mind, and a pure heart that allows us to genuinely understand others and act righteously. This isn't just a philosophy, it's an ancient technique, a lifelong practice for developing what we now call social intelligence. Throughout this video, we will unravel Confucius's revolutionary idea that to change the world, you must first change yourself. His focus wasn't on changing rulers or political systems directly, but on transforming individuals from within. This radical approach suggests that true power, true influence, and true harmony come from a deeply cultivated personal character. We will explore how the Analects guides us through this process. From understanding core virtues like benevolence and righteousness, to the practical application of ritual and propriety, and the continuous journey of learning and self-reflection. By the end of this journey, you will gain a new perspective on what it means to be truly socially intelligent. You'll understand why your inner world, your consciousness, is the most powerful tool you possess for navigating the complexities of human relationships and contributing to a more harmonious world. This isn't just about intellectual knowledge. It's about practical wisdom that can transform your daily interactions, your leadership, and your personal well-being. So let's dive into the profound teachings of the Analects and discover these ancient techniques for mastering social intelligence. Context and background: to truly appreciate the wisdom of the Analects, we must first understand the tumultuous world into which Confucius was born. Confucius, or Confuzi, lived from 551 to 479 BCE, a period in Chinese history known as the Spring and Autumn period, leading into the Warring States period. Imagine an era of profound political fragmentation, constant warfare between rival states, and widespread social upheaval. The central authority of the Zhou dynasty had long since weakened, and feudal lords vied for power, leading to ceaseless conflict, moral decay, and a general sense of chaos. It was a time when established traditions were crumbling and moral values seemed to be eroding. Confucius, born into a declining noble family in the state of Lu, witnessed this chaos firsthand. He yearned for a return to the perceived golden age of the early Zhou dynasty, a time he believed was characterized by moral integrity, social harmony, and benevolent governance. His life's mission became to restore this lost order, not through military might or political maneuvering, but through a radical emphasis on ethics and personal moral cultivation. The Analects, compiled by Confucius's disciples after his death, is not a systematically structured philosophical treatise. Instead, it is a collection of aphorisms, short dialogues, and anecdotes capturing Confucius's conversations with his students and his responses to various questions about life, ethics, and governance. This dialogic format itself reflects the Confucian emphasis on learning through interaction, questioning, and reflection. The text provides a pragmatic approach to ethics, focusing on how individuals can cultivate virtue to build a harmonious and stable society. At the heart of Confucian philosophy lies the concept of Ren, Chinese letter, often translated as humaneness, benevolence, or human-heartedness. Ren is considered the supreme virtue, the ultimate expression of what it means to be truly human. It embodies profound empathy, compassion, and care for others. Confucius believed that cultivating Ren was the cornerstone of ethical living and the foundation for all proper social interactions. He once asked, "Is Ren far away? If we desire Ren, it will be here." Analects 7.30, suggesting that this highest virtue is not an elusive ideal but an achievable state through conscious effort. Closely intertwined with Ren is Yi, Chinese letter, or righteousness. Yi refers to doing what is morally right and appropriate in any given situation. It guides individuals to act in accordance with moral principles, often requiring a conscious choice to prioritize ethical conduct over personal gain or expediency. Confucius noted, the Junzi understands the small person understands profit, Analects 4.16, highlighting the critical distinction between acting ethically and merely pursuing self-interest. Yi requires a cultivated moral compass, a conscious understanding of justice and fairness. Then there is Lai Chinese letter, which encompasses ritual propriety, etiquette, and social norms. Lai is much more than mere outward ceremony. It is the structured framework through which Ren and Yi are expressed in society. It provides the guidelines for appropriate behavior in all human interactions, from bowing respectfully to elders to performing elaborate state rituals. Confucius believed that through the conscious practice of Lai, individuals could internalize virtues, regulate their emotions, and maintain social order. He said, if you are regulated by the Lai and have not yet achieved a state of balance, then you need only to apply the Lai, Analects 3.15, implying that consistent adherence to Lai helps to shape one's inner disposition. The ultimate aim of this self-cultivation was to become a Junzi Chinese letter, an exemplary person or noble gentleman. The Junzi is the ideal archetype of a morally cultivated individual, characterized by inner strength, composure, integrity, and a deep commitment to ethical principles. They embody Ren, Yi, Lai, and Zhai Chinese letter wisdom, demonstrating social intelligence through self-mastery and empathetic engagement with others. The Junzi serves as a role model whose virtuous conduct inspires those around them, thereby contributing to societal harmony. This is not a title inherited by birth, but a status earned through lifelong conscious effort and moral refinement. Confucius's philosophical approach was revolutionary for his time because it shifted the focus from external power struggles to internal transformation. While other thinkers advised rulers on military strategies or legal reforms, Confucius proposed a game of changing people, not changing rulers. He believed that a society of morally upright individuals led by virtuous rulers would naturally achieve peace and stability. The Analects, therefore, became a foundational text not just for personal ethics, but for an entire model of ethical leadership and governance, deeply influencing East Asian culture for millennia. The text also places immense importance on learning, Zhu Chinese letter, and self-reflection, see Chinese letter. Confucius famously said, to learn and then to practice what you have learned, is that not a pleasure? The Analects 1.1. He advocated for a continuous cycle of acquiring knowledge, reflecting upon its meaning, and applying it in daily life. This is not passive learning, but an active, conscious engagement with the world and oneself. Learning without thought is labor lost, thought without learning is perilous. Analects 2.15 summarizes this essential balance. This continuous process of learning and self-examination is the ancient technique for developing a refined consciousness, and by extension, sophisticated social intelligence. Moreover, the Analects implicitly addresses concepts of fairness and proper distribution through ideas like righteousness and concern for social well-being. While a direct term for justice, as understood in Western philosophy, is not explicitly central, the pervasive emphasis on acting for the common good and rectifying societal imbalances points to a deep, implicit understanding of justice. This sense of justice is rooted in the individual's cultivation of virtues, extending from familial duties to broader societal responsibilities. Core narrative and analysis, the core of Confucius's philosophy, and indeed his ancient technique for social intelligence, hinges on the profound idea that our external social world is a reflection of our internal moral landscape. To truly master social interaction, to build trust, foster harmony, and lead effectively, we must first cultivate our inner consciousness. This isn't about wearing a mask or performing for others, it's about transforming who we are fundamentally from the inside out. This transformation begins with self-cultivation, Xiu Shen. Confucius teaches us that the individual self is not an isolated entity but is profoundly relational, shaped by our family, community, and social roles. Therefore, cultivating ourselves means engaging deeply with our inner states, motivations, and actions. It's a lifelong endeavor of developing moral character, much like a craftsman meticulously carves and polishes a raw material. This constant process of refinement makes us aware of our own imperfections and drives us to improve. A crucial aspect of this self-cultivation is learning Xiu and reflection. See, Confucius didn't view learning as a passive acquisition of facts, but as an active, transformative process. When I walk along with two others, they may serve me as my teachers. I will pick out their good qualities and follow them, their bad qualities and correct them. Analects 7.22. This quote profoundly illustrates how social interactions become a living classroom. By consciously observing others, discerning their strengths and weaknesses, we gain insights not just into them but into ourselves. It's a continuous feedback loop. We learn, we reflect, we apply, we refine. This conscious self-examination, or Xiu Shen, is vital for understanding our own inner workings and motivations. This process directly leads to the development of Ren, Chinese letter, humaneness or benevolence. Ren is not a theoretical concept. It's an ideal internal state that social intelligence aims to foster and express. It's about profound empathy, caring for others, and the ability to act in accordance with our social roles with compassion. The core principle of Ren is encapsulated in the Silver Rule. Do not impose on others what you yourself do not desire. Analects 15.24. This requires a conscious effort to step into another's shoes, to understand their perspective, and to anticipate the impact of our actions on their consciousness. For example, a benevolent leader considers the well-being of their subordinates before making decisions, consciously reflecting on how policies might affect their lives. This isn't just a rule, it's a profound exercise in empathy. The conscious application of Ren and Yi righteousness is then channeled through Lai Chinese letter or ritual propriety. Lai encompasses all the social norms, etiquette, customs, and rituals that govern human interactions. It provides the structure and guidelines for expressing our inner virtues. Think of Lai as the ancient technology for translating our cultivated consciousness into predictable, harmonious, and respectful social behavior. For example, the elaborate rituals of a tea ceremony or the polite forms of address in conversation aren't just empty gestures. They are deliberate acts that cultivate discipline, express respect, and create a sense of shared order. By consciously performing these rituals, we habituate ourselves to virtue, making polite and considerate behavior second nature. The family unit for Confucius is the bedrock for moral development and the primary learning ground for social intelligence. Filial piety, Xiao Chinese letter, the deep respect and care for parents and elders and fraternal responsibility, D Chinese letter, the harmonious relationship between siblings are the roots from which other virtues grow. The lessons learned within the family, managing conflict, showing respect, practicing care, and fulfilling one's role are directly transferable to the wider community. An individual who fails to show proper respect to their parents, for instance, is unlikely to act righteously in broader society. This familial training ground demands constant conscious effort to understand relationships and respond appropriately. The ultimate embodiment of this cultivated consciousness and social intelligence is the Junzi Chinese letter, the exemplary person. The Junzi is not born but made through continuous self-mastery and ethical engagement. The Junzi acts with integrity, prioritizing moral principles over personal gain. They are diligent, steadfast, open-minded, and inclusive, embracing diverse perspectives. Their consciousness is not partisan or biased. They seek to understand and to act with fairness. A Junzi, for instance, will actively seek to understand the viewpoints of those who disagree with them, rather than immediately dismissing them. They are aware of their own potential for error and constantly strive for improvement, reflecting a deep self-awareness. Consider a leader. A Junzi leader governs by virtue, not by coercion. Their moral character inspires loyalty and trust rather than relying on fear or strict laws. Confucius argued, guide them with what is correct, keep them in order with rituals, and they will learn shame and will moreover keep themselves correct. Analects 2.3. This means a leader's cultivated consciousness, their internal integrity and benevolent intentions, directly shapes the moral fabric of society. Their leadership is a conscious act of moral exemplification, which then fosters a collective sense of shame for wrongdoing and a desire for goodness among the people. The concept of Xin, Chinese letter, trustworthiness, and sincerity, is also paramount. A socially intelligent person is one whose words are backed by their deeds. Authenticity is revealed through actions, not just through eloquent speeches. This requires a conscious alignment between one's inner intentions and outward behavior. If a person says they will do something, their cultivated consciousness ensures they follow through, building a reputation for reliability and fostering deep trust in their social circles. A lack of sincerity erodes social bonds and diminishes one's social intelligence. Confucius also warned against the dangers of learning without thinking and thinking without learning. Analects 2.15. This highlights the crucial role of conscious deliberation. Learning without thoughtful reflection leads to mere rote memorization, a superficial engagement that lacks true understanding. Conversely, thinking without acquiring knowledge is perilous, as it can lead to misguided conclusions based on incomplete information or personal biases. True wisdom, and therefore true social intelligence, comes from a conscious, iterative process of intellectual acquisition and deep introspection. The rectification of names, Zhengaming Chinese letter, is another key concept, underscoring the connection between conscious understanding of roles and the actual performance of those roles. Confucius insisted that a ruler should act as a ruler, a father as a father, and a son as a son. This means that individuals must consciously live up to the responsibilities and expectations associated with their designated functions. If names are not rectified, then words lose their meaning and social order breaks down. This implies a conscious awareness of one's place and duties within the social fabric and the integrity to fulfill them. The Analects, therefore, presents a view of consciousness that is not merely an internal mental state, but one that is embodied and expressed through actions, relationships, and social roles. Understanding oneself is inseparable from understanding one's place within a social fabric. The Wei Dao is not an abstract philosophical concept, but a lived practice of ethical conduct and social harmony, cultivated through learning, reflection, and adherence to ritual propriety. It represents the ultimate aim of conscious living and social engagement, a state of profound harmony and order that ripples outwards from the individual to the family, the state, and ultimately the world. Deep insight and reflection. Confucius's ancient techniques for social intelligence resonate with startling clarity in our modern world, offering profound insights into our personal lives, ethical responsibilities, and societal structures. The Analects encourages us to view our consciousness not as a passive observer, but as the active architect of our social reality. One of the most powerful applications lies in ethical leadership. In a world often driven by profit margins, power dynamics, or charismatic performance, the Confucian ideal of the Junzi offers a vital counter-narrative. A Junzi leader governs by virtue, setting a moral example that inspires trust and loyalty. Consider a CEO who prioritizes employee well-being and ethical sourcing, even if it means slightly lower short-term profits. This conscious choice to lead with integrity rather than merely by compliance creates a positive organizational culture, reduces internal conflict, and fosters genuine commitment from employees. It's the difference between a boss who demands respect and a leader who earns it through their cultivated moral character. The Confucian emphasis on interpersonal skills is equally relevant. The principles of Ren humaneness, Xiu reciprocity, and Lai propriety provide a timeless framework for building strong, healthy relationships. In our personal lives, this means consciously practicing empathy, actively listening, and considering how our words and actions affect others. For example, in a marital disagreement, applying Xiu means consciously asking, "How would I feel if my partner said or did this to me?" This conscious shift in perspective can de-escalate conflict and foster deeper understanding. In professional settings, practicing lie means showing respect, adhering to professional etiquette, and communicating clearly and thoughtfully, which builds trust and strengthens collaboration. The Analects' focus on self-awareness and mindfulness can be seen as an ancient precursor to modern psychological practices. The Confucian call for continuous self-examination, learning from others' good and bad points, and reflecting on one's motivations aligns directly with contemporary mindfulness and cognitive behavioral therapy (CBT) techniques. These practices encourage us to become more aware of our thoughts, emotions, and their impact on our actions, fostering greater emotional intelligence. For instance, a person struggling with anger might consciously reflect on the triggers of their anger, identify their underlying motivations, and choose a more righteous response rather than reacting impulsively. In an increasingly polarized and individualistic world, the Confucian emphasis on social harmony and community building offers crucial insights. It reminds us that our individual well-being is intrinsically linked to the health of our communities. The focus on relationality, mutual responsibility, and fulfilling one's social roles encourages us to look beyond self-interest and contribute to the collective good. Consider a neighborhood initiative where people consciously put aside differences to improve their shared environment, fostering a sense of belonging and collective responsibility. However, applying this ancient wisdom in a modern context isn't without its nuances and points of contention. The Analects operates within a hierarchical social structure, which might seem at odds with modern egalitarian values. How do we extract the universal principles of respect and duty without blindly adopting rigid hierarchies? Furthermore, the strong emphasis on tradition and ritual lie raises questions about balancing respect for heritage with the need for innovation and individual autonomy in rapidly changing societies. The challenge is to discern the underlying ethical principles that lie seeks to embody, rather than merely performing ancient rites. Let's reflect on some questions that Confucius's teachings provoke. What does self-cultivation truly mean for you in your daily life? Beyond acquiring knowledge, how do you consciously refine your character and intentions? How do you consciously practice empathy and reciprocity? Shu, in your closest relationships and in your broader social interactions, are you actively considering others' perspectives before acting? In what ways do you believe our modern focus on external validation might hinder our development of genuine inner consciousness and social intelligence? How can we shift this focus? What rituals or established social norms do you consciously adhere to that help you express respect and maintain harmony in your daily life, even if they seem small? How do these contribute to your social intelligence? How can the ideal of the Junzi, the exemplary person, inspire you to approach ethical leadership, whether in your family, workplace, or community? What specific virtues would you prioritize? Confucius believed that understanding and fulfilling our roles is crucial for social order. How do you understand your own roles in society, and how do you consciously strive to fulfill them with integrity? These questions are not meant to be answered lightly. They are invitations to a deeper, more conscious engagement with ourselves and our social world, guided by the timeless wisdom of the Analects. Outro. As we conclude our journey through the Analects, one powerful truth emerges. The art of mastering social intelligence is not found in superficial tactics or external charm, but in the profound, continuous cultivation of our inner consciousness. Confucius taught us that to build a harmonious society, to lead with integrity, and to foster genuine connections, we must first embark on a lifelong path of self-cultivation, reflection, and the conscious practice of virtues like humaneness, righteousness, and propriety. Our inner world is the blueprint for our outer world. His wisdom, born from an era of chaos, offers a beacon of hope and practical guidance for our own complex times. By consciously engaging with our motivations, understanding others' perspectives, and acting with integrity, we not only improve ourselves but also contribute to a more just, compassionate, and harmonious world. This ancient technique is more relevant now than ever before. If this exploration has sparked your curiosity, I invite you to delve deeper into the rich tapestry of ancient thought. Consider exploring Lao Tzu's Tao Te Ching for a complementary perspective that emphasizes living in harmony with the natural way, focusing on effortless action and spontaneity, offering a fascinating contrast to Confucian structured ethics. Mencius's philosophy of innate human goodness. To understand how a later Confucian thinker expanded on the idea that humans are born with the seeds of virtue, requiring cultivation to blossom. Modern psychological theories of emotional intelligence, EC, and social emotional learning, CEL, to see how contemporary science validates and articulates many of the principles of empathy, self-awareness, and relational skills that Confucius championed millennia ago. The concept of Ubuntu from African philosophy, to compare how another ancient tradition emphasizes the profound interconnectedness of humanity, stating "I am because we are," echoing the relational self of Confucianism. The journey of understanding ourselves and our place in the social fabric is a continuous one. May Confucius's timeless wisdom inspire you to cultivate your brightest mind and your purest heart, making every interaction an act of conscious social intelligence. Thank you for joining us on this exploration of ancient techniques for a better future. Confucius on Leadership, The Unseen Power of Benevolence, Ren. Hook and intro in a world obsessed with power, force, and immediate results. What if the most profound form of leadership lay not in command, but in compassion? What if the greatest strength came from the gentlest of virtues? Today, we embark on a journey back to ancient China, to the spring and autumn period, a time of chaos and conflict, yet also a crucible of some of humanity's most enduring wisdom. We will explore the revolutionary philosophy of Confucius, a man who over 2 millennia ago proposed a radical idea that true leadership is achieved not through coercion but through the cultivation of benevolence, a virtue he called Ren. Imagine a leader whose mere presence inspires trust, whose actions cultivate loyalty, and whose character guides an entire populace towards harmony, not through fear but through respect. This is the vision of leadership that Confucius laid out in The Analects, a collection of his teachings that continue to resonate with profound relevance today. In an era where leaders often prioritize power and self-interest, Confucius reminds us that the true measure of a leader lies in their moral compass, their commitment to the welfare of their people, and their ability to lead without force. The Analects, a foundational text of East Asian thought, isn't just a dusty old book of philosophy. It is a practical guide for living a virtuous life and, crucially, for governing with ethical wisdom. Confucius believed that the stability of a state, the harmony of its society, and the well-being of its people all hinged on one thing: the moral character of its leaders. He argued that if a leader embodies Ren, acting with humaneness and empathy, their influence would be as natural and undeniable as the North Star guiding ships across the vast ocean. But how exactly does one lead without force? What does benevolence truly mean in the cut-and-thrust world of governance? And is this ancient ideal still applicable in our complex, globalized 21st century? These are the questions we will delve into today. We will uncover how Confucius challenged the prevailing norms of his time, advocating for a leadership style built on self-cultivation, moral example, and the profound power of empathy. This video is not just about understanding ancient philosophy, it is about reflecting on our own leadership challenges, whether in our communities, workplaces, or even our families. It is about discovering a timeless wisdom that offers an alternative path to influence and authority, one that prioritizes genuine connection and lasting transformation over superficial compliance. Stay with us as we unpack the profound insights of Confucius and explore how the power of benevolence can truly change the world, one leader and one virtuous act at a time. context and background. To truly appreciate Confucius's philosophy of leading without force, we must first understand the tumultuous world in which he lived. Confucius, or Confuzi, lived from 551 to 479 BCE, a period known as the Spring and Autumn period in Chinese history. This era was characterized by profound political fragmentation, constant warfare between rival states, and widespread social upheaval. The centralized authority of the Xiu dynasty, which had once united much of China, was in rapid decline, giving way to powerful feudal lords who frequently engaged in brutal conflicts, often driven by ambition and self-interest. Imagine a society where stability was a distant memory, where trust was scarce, and where the common people suffered immensely under the whims of warring aristocrats. This was the landscape that shaped Confucius's worldview. He witnessed firsthand the devastating consequences of governance based solely on military might, coercive laws, and ruthless power plays. He saw that such methods might yield short-term victories, but they ultimately bred resentment, disloyalty, and perpetual cycles of violence. Confucius was not merely an ivory tower philosopher. He was a scholar and an official who spent much of his life traveling across various states, seeking a ruler who would adopt his political and ethical philosophy. He yearned to restore the moral and social order he believed had existed in earlier, more harmonious times, particularly during the early Zhou dynasty. Despite his profound wisdom, he often found his counsel unheeded by power-hungry rulers who preferred immediate gains over long-term ethical governance. His teachings, later compiled by his disciples into the Analects, were a direct response to this chaos. The Analects is not a systematic treatise, but rather a collection of aphorisms, anecdotes, and dialogues between Confucius and his students or various rulers. It is less about abstract metaphysics and more about practical ethics, human relationships, and the principles of good governance, all grounded in the belief that a well-ordered society begins with well-ordered individuals. At the heart of Confucius's philosophy lies the concept of virtue, particularly Ren Chinese letter, which is often translated as benevolence, humaneness, or goodness. This is not merely a passive quality, but an active, empathetic concern for the well-being of others. It is the ideal state of human character, and for a leader, it is the ultimate tool for governance. Confucius believed that a leader's moral cultivation, the Chinese letter, was far more effective than any law or army in guiding the people and fostering social harmony. Another crucial concept is Lai Chinese letter, which refers to rights, propriety, rituals, and social norms. Lai provides the external framework for ethical conduct, channeling and expressing Ren in socially appropriate ways. It establishes order and decorum in interactions, from grand state ceremonies to everyday greetings. While Ren is the inner spirit, Lai is the outward expression that helps maintain social cohesion and reinforce moral behavior. The ideal leader in Confucian thought is the Junzi, Chinese letter, often translated as the gentleman or noble person. The Junzi is not defined by birth or wealth, but by moral character, self-cultivation, and a commitment to ethical principles. They are a moral exemplar whose actions serve as a blueprint for society. The Junzi continuously engages in self-reflection and learning, Zhu, Chinese letter, understanding that personal improvement is the foundation of effective leadership. Confucius also introduced the idea of rectification of names. Zhengming, Chinese letter, which means ensuring that titles and roles correspond to reality and duty. If a ruler is called a ruler, they must truly act as a ruler, fulfilling the ethical responsibilities inherent in that role. This principle highlights the importance of integrity and authenticity in leadership, where actions must align with titles, preventing hypocrisy and confusion that can lead to societal breakdown. In essence, Confucius offered a radical departure from the power-centric politics of his time. He proposed a holistic approach to governance, one where personal virtue, ethical conduct, social harmony, and the well-being of the people were inextricably linked. His vision was a society where individuals willingly followed the way Tao Chinese letter not out of fear, but out of an internalized sense of shame for wrongdoing and an inspiration to emulate the virtuous example of their leaders. Core narrative and analysis at the very heart of Confucius's philosophy on leadership lies the concept of benevolence. But what does it truly mean for a leader to be benevolent? It's far more than simple kindness. It's an active, empathetic concern for the well-being of others, a deep-seated ethical disposition that guides every action and decision. For Confucius, Ren is the essence of being human and therefore the foundation of all ethical conduct, especially for those in positions of power. Consider the profound statement from Analects 4.1. The master said, "Is Ren far off? If we really want Ren, it is close at hand." This isn't a passive observation, it's an empowering declaration. It means Ren isn't some unattainable ideal reserved for saints or sages. It's a choice, a commitment, a practice that is always within our reach. A leader who genuinely seeks Ren will find it in every interaction, every policy, every opportunity to serve their people. This active benevolence leads directly to Confucius's most transformative idea, leading by example rather than by force. In Analects 2.1, he famously stated, "To govern a country by means of moral virtue is like being the North Star. It stays in its place, and the host of stars turn towards it." Imagine the North Star unwavering and constant. It doesn't command other stars to revolve around it. Its sheer presence, its stability naturally draws them into orbit. Similarly, a leader who embodies Ren doesn't need to bark orders or issue threats. Their moral gravitas, their consistent virtue, naturally attracts respect, loyalty, and willing cooperation from the populace. This is further reinforced in the metaphor of wind and grass. Analects 12.19 illustrates this beautifully. The virtue of those in high stations is like the wind, and the virtue of the common people is like the grass. The grass will surely bend when the wind blows across it. The wind doesn't forcefully yank the grass into submission, it merely blows and the grass naturally follows its movement. This powerful analogy highlights how a leader's moral influence is not coercive, but an inherent force that subtly yet effectively shapes the behavior and attitudes of the people. Confucius drew a stark contrast between this virtue-based leadership and governance through laws and punishments. In Analects 2.3, he declared, "If you lead the people with laws and regulate them by punishments, they will indeed try to avoid the punishment but not feel any shame. If you lead them with virtue and regulate them by propriety, they will feel shame and will also correct themselves." This is a fundamental critique of legalism and authoritarianism. When people are governed by fear of punishment, their obedience is superficial. They will find ways to circumvent the rules, and crucially, they will never internalize the moral reason behind those rules. They will feel no shame for wrongdoing, only regret at being caught. However, if they are led by a virtuous leader, one who sets a moral example and guides them through proper rights, something profound happens. They develop a sense of shame. This isn't humiliation, but a deep internal recognition of having done wrong, prompting self-correction. This internal moral compass, cultivated by the leader's example, leads to genuine, lasting ethical behavior. This is the difference between superficial compliance and true transformation. The foundation of this benevolent leadership is relentless self-cultivation, or Xiu Chinese letter. A leader cannot inspire virtue if they do not embody it themselves. This involves constant learning, reflection, and self-correction. Analects 1.1 states, "To learn and then have occasion to practice what you have learned, is this not a joy?" This isn't just about accumulating knowledge, but about integrating that knowledge into one's character and actions. Zhengzi, a disciple of Confucius, famously practiced daily introspection, examining himself on 3 points. Whether in transacting business for others, I may have been wanting in diligence. Whether in intercourse with friends, I may have been wanting in sincerity. Whether I may have not learned and transmitted all I knew. Another critical aspect of self-cultivation is the rectification of names, zhengaming. Chinese letter. This concept, discussed in Analects 12.11, means ensuring that every individual, especially a leader, lives up to the ethical responsibilities inherent in their title. When Duke Jing of Kai asked Confucius about governance, he replied, "Let the prince be a prince, and the minister be a minister, let the father be a father, and the son be a son." This seemingly simple statement carries immense weight. It implies that true social order requires authenticity. A ruler is a ruler because they fulfill the duties of rulership with integrity, not just because they hold a position. If roles are not lived up to, society descends into chaos, as the Duke himself implicitly understood when he followed up. If indeed the ruler be not ruler, the minister not minister, the father not father, and the son not son, even if there were grain, how would I get to eat it? Beyond Ren and self-cultivation, Confucius also highlighted other virtues that support benevolent leadership. Yi Chinese letter or righteousness dictates the appropriate action in specific contexts. While Ren is the general spirit of humaneness, Yi guides how that spirit should manifest in concrete situations, ensuring justice and moral correctness. A benevolent leader must also be righteous, making fair and just decisions even when difficult. The concept of leading without force also finds resonance, though with different nuances in other Eastern philosophies. Lao Tzu's Tao Te Ching, for instance, advocates for Wu Wei Chinese letter, often translated as non-action or effortless action. While Confucianism emphasizes active moral cultivation and engagement in social roles, Taoism suggests that leaders should allow natural processes to unfold, intervening only when necessary and with minimal imposition. The Tao Te Ching advises, govern a great state as you would cook a small fish. Tao Te Ching, Chapter 60, meaning with delicate care without overhandling or excessive interference. This implies a subtle, indirect approach where the Tao or the Wei guides events, similar to how a benevolent Confucian leader's influence feels natural and unforced. A powerful counterpoint to this Confucian ideal of benevolent leadership can be found in Western literature. Consider Shakespeare's Macbeth. It is a chilling exploration of ambition, tyranny, and the destructive consequences of power seized through force and maintained through violence. Macbeth, driven by insatiable desire and fear, sacrifices all virtue for the crown. His reign is characterized by paranoia, bloodshed, and ultimately utter ruin for himself and his kingdom. He leads solely through coercion, and the result is chaos, resentment, and a complete breakdown of trust. The tragedy of Macbeth implicitly validates Confucius's warning: leadership without virtue is destined for self-destruction. The Analects, therefore, presents a comprehensive vision of leadership where the true power lies not in the sword or the law book, but in the cultivated character of the leader. It is a power that attracts, inspires, and transforms, creating a lasting legacy of harmony and well-being. Deep insight and reflection, Confucius's philosophy of leading without force, through the power of benevolence, offers profound implications for our modern world, resonating across personal, social, and political spheres. In an era where trust in institutions and leaders is often eroding, the Confucian emphasis on integrity, empathy, and ethical example provides a powerful blueprint for rebuilding confidence and fostering genuine connection. Consider the concept of ethical leadership in the 21st century. In boardrooms and political chambers, leaders are increasingly judged not just by their financial gains or legislative successes, but by their moral compass. Companies like Patagonia, known for their environmental stewardship and fair labor practices, embody a form of benevolent leadership that prioritizes long-term well-being over short-term profits. Their founders lead by example, cultivating a culture of integrity and purpose that attracts loyal customers and dedicated employees, demonstrating that profit and virtue are not mutually exclusive. This resonates deeply with Confucius's emphasis on a leader's character being the foundation of their success. The idea of the Chinese letter as a form of moral charisma or influence is a precursor to modern notions of soft power and moral diplomacy. Nations today often seek to influence others not just through military or economic might, but through the attractiveness of their culture, values, and ethical conduct. Think of countries that are globally respected for their humanitarian aid efforts, their commitment to human rights, or their cultural exports. This form of influence, where nations earn respect and cooperation through their moral standing, directly echoes Confucius's belief that a leader's virtue naturally attracts others, making forceful imposition unnecessary. Furthermore, the Analects' focus on cultivating character for governance highlights the enduring importance of continuous personal development for those in positions of power. We've seen countless examples of leaders whose personal failings have undermined their public office. Confucius would argue that effective governance begins with mastering oneself. Modern leadership training programs that emphasize emotional intelligence, self-awareness, and ethical decision-making are, in a way, echoes of Confucian self-cultivation, Xiu Shen. Leaders like Nelson Mandela, who spent decades in prison cultivating inner strength and a profound sense of justice, emerged to lead a nation through reconciliation, embodying the transformative power of a cultivated character. However, the Confucian ideal is not without its points of contention and nuanced discussions. Critics might argue that this model of leadership is overly idealistic versus realistic. In a world often driven by ruthless power politics and the inherent imperfections of human nature, can personal virtue truly be sufficient to navigate complex challenges? Is it practical to expect rulers to achieve such a high level of moral perfection? The Analects itself suggests a pragmatic idealism where striving for virtue is inherently beneficial even if perfection is elusive. It offers a long-term vision, recognizing that true change is gradual. Another point of discussion is the universality of Ren. While benevolence is a compelling virtue, its specific manifestations and the societal structures it supports might be culturally specific. Can a concept rooted in ancient East Asian hierarchical structures be directly applied across diverse global contexts, especially in more egalitarian societies? Proponents would argue that the underlying principles of empathy, integrity, and respect are universal, even if their expressions vary. Finally, there's the challenge of balancing Ren and pragmatism. How should a benevolent leader handle situations that require difficult decisions, enforce laws, or even in extreme cases resort to force to protect the state or its people? Confucius didn't dismiss the need for order, but he insisted that true Ren would guide practical action, ensuring that even necessary tough decisions were made with fairness and a concern for the overall well-being. It is about prioritizing long-term harmony over short-term expediency, and always seeking the most humane path available. Let's now consider some questions for your own reflection. In your own life or community, where do you see examples of leadership driven by benevolence rather than force? What makes those leaders effective? How might applying the principle of leading by example change the dynamics in your workplace or family? Do you believe that virtue alone is sufficient for effective governance? Or do laws and punishments play an indispensable role? What is the ideal balance? Confucius emphasized continuous self-cultivation. What practices could you integrate into your daily life to cultivate your own Ren and enhance your influence? How can we, as individuals, encourage and support benevolent leadership in our public spheres, even when it seems rare? Are there limits to leading without force? When might a benevolent leader need to employ more assertive or even coercive measures? And how would that align with Confucian principles? Outro. As we conclude our journey through the wisdom of Confucius, the core message remains clear. The most profound and lasting form of leadership is not born from coercion, but from the unwavering power of benevolence. Through the cultivation of Ren, through leading by moral example, and through a relentless commitment to self-improvement, leaders can inspire genuine loyalty, foster deep social harmony, and create a legacy that transcends fleeting power. Confucius showed us that true strength lies in humility, wisdom, and a compassionate heart, guiding others like the North Star, not through command, but through the sheer force of its steadfast virtue. If this exploration of ancient wisdom has sparked your curiosity, there are many avenues for further thought and discovery. You might want to delve deeper into the philosophical contrasts between Lao Tzu's Tao Te Ching and the concept of Wu Wei non-action. Explore how Taoism offers a complementary yet distinct vision of effortless governance and natural influence. Mencius and the Kingly Way Wang Dao. Discover how this later Confucian philosopher expanded on Confucius's ideas, emphasizing the innate goodness of human nature and the moral imperative for rulers to ensure the people's welfare. The contemporary relevance of ethical leadership. Examine modern case studies of leaders in business, politics, and social movements who exemplify Confucian principles in today's complex world. The tragic flaws of tyrannical rule as seen in literature. Revisit works like Shakespeare's Macbeth or even explore modern psychological thrillers that delve into the destructive nature of unchecked ambition and coercive power, serving as powerful foils to benevolent leadership. Thank you for joining us on this intellectual journey. May you find inspiration in the enduring wisdom of Confucius, and may you recognize the quiet, the transformative power of benevolence in your own life and in the world around you. Until next time, keep seeking wisdom, keep cultivating virtue, and keep leading with compassion.